Sarah got a report of a tiny owl blocking the road. She quickly drove to the scene where a couple of cars were hesitant to drive due to the tiny owl. Sarah stepped out of her patrol car and approached the baby owl cautiously. To her surprise, the little owl didn't flinch or attempt to fly away. Instead, it hopped closer to her, emitting a series of soft hoots. Confused but determined to help, Officer Sarah knelt down and extended her hand, allowing the baby owl to hop onto her gloved finger. It was clear this young owl needed assistance, but Officer Sarah couldn't figure out what was wrong. Welcome to Wonderbot Animals. When she arrived at the scene, cars had messily tried to get around the animal, the cute thing perched on the road. Sarah noted that it was tiny, its feathers slightly ruffled and not budging when people tried to shoo it away gently. It truly seemed adamant to remain on the road. Sarah knew she had to find out why. It had been a strange thing to call the police for, but as an officer, she was also able to handle road blockages and help traffic to continue safely. Though first, she would try to get the bird off the road. It would feel simple enough to do, or so she had originally thought. Sarah had no idea that the reason why it was there would be so shocking. As she approached the animal and asked onlookers to give her some semblance of space, the young owl didn't become alarmed. No, the craziest thing happened, and the bird started to hop closer toward her, emitting soft hoots as it did so. Sarah crouched down, extending her hand to it. This didn't seem complicated to solve at all. "We already tried that," a male onlooker said as the bird hopped on her finger. Sarah turned to the man, but didn't inquire what he meant. She started to move with the tiny owl to the side of the road, nearing a branch for it to perch on. However, when she tried to put it on said branch, it started flying and landed, right in the middle of the road again. Sarah was flabbergasted by this. What could it mean? She didn't understand animals on this level. Sure, she had her fair share of cats, dogs, and even a parakeet, but this was outside of her expertise. She would have to call someone, but before doing so, she would make sure traffic could continue. She had seen the mess the traffic had been in with the growing numbers of vehicles arriving and now only one road available for a two-way street. Sarah quickly assessed the situation and realized that regardless of the owl's tiny size, it had managed to halt traffic. She had to hold in a laugh at the thought of the bird causing such a ruckus, but it was nice that everyone respected the creature so much. Seeing what Sarah was trying to do, local trucker Ray, the male onlooker from before, noticed her efforts and volunteered to help. Together, they directed the traffic, Ray creating a detour using a nearby alley. He would ask people to go into the alley and mention that the road was temporarily obstructed. Now, Sarah could find out what was going on. As soon as she found that traffic was continuing like it should, she turned back to the young owl. She knelt beside the bird, not wanting to spook it. Seeing how close she was, the animal hopped closer, nearly closing the distance between them. Looking at the pristine feathers, its alertness and rhythmic breathing, it seemed like it was physically okay. Sarah had no clue what kind of emotional roller coaster she was about to board. It was then that a glint caught her eye. Something metallic seemed to be attached to the owl's delicate leg. Maybe it needed help, which was why it was sitting in the road, gathering everyone's attention. She slowly moved her hand toward it, but as she was close to touching it, the animal did something strange. The small owl pecked her, its beak going against her glove. Regardless of the protection they brought, she could still feel the sharpness of its beak. Was it protecting this thing that was hurting him, or was it protecting it? Sarah wasn't sure of it, but she knew she had to find out what it was exactly. Then she gasped. It seemed like it was attached to the metal cord. In one of its small claws, it held something that looked like a coin or pendant. A deep blue gemstone had caught the light and reflected it back at her. This brought more questions to her mind. She knew that she needed help with this. She slowly stood up and grabbed her phone to make a phone call. With the roadblock in place and the mystery of the pendant dangling in her mind, she dialed one of her friends who worked at the zoo. Dr. Stephen Mitchell, a local wildlife expert who worked with birds of prey. "Hey Sarah, I thought you were working today. Are you all right?" Stephen asked when he answered the phone. Sarah didn't even know where to begin. "Hey, Mitchell," Sarah began. "I've got a unique situation here. A baby owl right in the middle of the road and it refuses to move." "Anything else that is odd?" he asked. "Well, there is a metal cord around its leg and he is holding something attached to it in its claw. It tried to peck me when I tried to take it. Can you come to take a look?" Stephen agreed, and a dusty SUV arrived at the scene within a few minutes. "Hey, Sarah," he said, surveying the scene, his eye falling on the small owl still standing on the same exact spot on the road. Stephen's brow furrowed. "I've dealt with many bird-related issues, but this is certainly a first. Let's see what we've got here." They had no clue about the mystery they were about to unravel. Stephen also noted how the owl wasn't frightened by their approach. Furthermore, even when Stephen softly touched the owl, it didn't seem to budge. It only ruffled its feathers and tried to use its beak on Stephen when he tried to touch the claw holding the item. Sarah couldn't understand why the bird had hopped on her finger before when it was now so adamant about not being touched there now. Officer Sarah was more than familiar with curious creatures, but this baby owl's insistence was unmatched. Its eyes, a mix of innocence and desperation, held her gaze. Attached to its leg was a pendant that seemed out of place. She could feel the weight of its significance. Still, she had to wonder, how did a tiny owl come across such an item? Dr. Stephen Mitchell, his face lined with intrigue, suggested a gentler approach. "These creatures are sensitive," he whispered. They both moved in slow, deliberate motions, trying to foster a bond of trust with the owl. The bird's talons gripped the pendant, its eyes darting between the two humans, assessing their intentions. Sarah, recalling her initial interaction, began by extending her gloved hand slowly. The owl, recognizing her, hopped onto her finger, still clutching the pendant. With Stephen's guidance, they carefully maneuvered to examine it. The owl's occasional hoots and flutters were a testament to its anxiety, but they remained patient. The pendant's metallic sheen finally came into full view, revealing an intricate design and markings. Dr. Mitchell's eyes widened in recognition. "This is a trail marker pendant," he exclaimed. "Hikers use them to commemorate their journeys. But why would an owl have one?" Sarah's mind raced. The local hiking community was tight-knit, and such pendants weren't easily misplaced. The connection between Robert, the missing hiker, and this baby owl grew stronger in her mind. There was a story here, one that went beyond a simple lost item. They needed answers, and they had the first piece of the puzzle right in their hands. Determined, Sarah and Dr. Mitchell delved into the pendant's potential origins. The local hiking community, with its traditions and tales, was vast. But this specific pendant, with its unique markings, should have a trace. The importance of their mission became more evident with each passing moment. Their efforts paid off when they stumbled upon a picture of Robert, the missing local hiker, proudly holding up a pendant that matched the one in their possession. The realization hit hard. The weight of responsibility to both Robert's family and the persistent owl rested heavily on their shoulders. Sarah mused aloud, "It's improbable, but what if this little one had an encounter with Robert?" Dr. Mitchell, deep in thought, nodded slowly. "Nature works in mysterious ways," he replied, thinking of the countless stories of animals sensing human emotions and distress. Meeting Robert's family brought the gravity of their quest into sharper focus. Tearful eyes and hopeful faces greeted them, sharing tales of Robert's adventures and his deep love for nature. Their heartfelt pleas for any information resounded in Sarah's heart, making her even more determined. With determination burning in their eyes, Sarah, Dr. Mitchell and the owl embarked on the path that Robert may have taken. The bird seemed strangely at ease, its eyes scanning the surroundings as it clung to Sarah's shoulder. As they stepped onto the trails, it became clear. They were not just following a map, but the intuition of an owl. Every rustle of leaves, every distant hoot echoed with significance. The owl's reactions were sharp, turning its head, flapping its wings, or hooting at specific junctures. Like a compass pointing north, it gestured them along the right path, an emissary between the known and unknown. The duo was vigilant, observing the ground and surroundings. Here a broken branch, there an imprinted boot mark. Robert had been there, and the signs of his journey, albeit faint, were present. With every hint, they felt closer to the mystery of his disappearance. The forest's very ambience felt thick with tales. The rustling leaves seemed to murmur stories. The wind seemed to carry whispers. The deeper they went, the more connected they felt to Robert and his love for nature. His spirit seemed to resonate in every corner. Sarah and Dr. Mitchell's respect for the owl grew exponentially. This creature, initially seen as a mere bearer of a pendant, was proving to be an intrinsic part of their journey. The bond was undeniable, the owl's actions constantly guiding them, intertwining their destinies. Hours of trekking led them to a secluded clearing. Nestled among the trees was a campsite. The tent, slightly askew, a cold campfire, and belongings strewn about indicated haste. Sarah's heart raced. They might have found where Robert last camped. Dr. Mitchell, his voice tinged with emotion, began to read the latest entries. One particular note stood out, speaking of an owl he'd befriended. The descriptions matched their feathered companion, shedding light on their remarkable bond and the circumstances leading up to his disappearance. Armed with Robert's diary and the owl's guidance, they identified the treacherous path he aimed to conquer next. The map indicated steep cliffs, hidden crevices, and unpredictable terrain. The dangers were evident, but the need to find Robert pushed them forward. Robert's diary entries, combined with the owl's persistent guidance, pieced together a tale of friendship and survival. The scribbles hinted at their unique connection and potential clues to Robert's current location. With renewed vigour, they pressed on, hoping to bring the tale to a hopeful conclusion. Poring over maps spread across a flat rock, Sarah and Dr. Mitchell worked tirelessly to plot out Robert's most likely journey. Marking potential stops and cross-referencing with his diary, they strategized a plan to retrace his steps. The owl occasionally pecked at areas on the map, lending its unique perspective. One of these paths, Sarah mused, tracing her fingers along a jagged trail, looks exceptionally risky. The map showed steep climbs, rapid descents, and potential landslide zones. Robert's adventurous spirit was admirable, but this particular route seemed fraught with danger. As they moved through the woods, it was as if the very trees spoke to them. An occasional rustling, a shadow cast in a particular direction, or the way the water flowed hinted at the paths Robert might have taken. The world around them seemed alive, full of stories waiting to be unraveled. While the beauty of the forest was undeniable, Sarah and Dr. Mitchell were keenly aware of the lurking threats. Slippery moss, hidden pits, unstable grounds. Any of these could have ensnared an unsuspecting hiker. Their fear grew that Robert might have encountered one such peril. As they approached specific areas, the owl's behaviour shifted. Its eyes grew more alert, its hoots more frequent. It fluttered from Sarah's shoulder to branches, pointing them in particular directions. It was clear. They were nearing crucial parts of Robert's journey. Recognizing the magnitude of the search ahead, Sarah made calls to the local authorities. She emphasized the urgency, explaining their findings and Robert's likely route. Soon, a group of dedicated volunteers and forest officials congregated, ready to assist. The small town's sense of community was palpable. News of Robert's disappearance and the discovery of his camp had spread. From local shopkeepers to students, groups formed organically, their collective spirit of hope fueling their efforts to find one of their own. The search parties fanned out, covering extensive ground. Through it all, the owl remained a central figure. It perched on higher branches, surveying the landscape, and would occasionally let out a specific hoot, directing the teams towards potential areas of interest. The forest's depth and density posed significant challenges. Thick underbrush, overarching canopies, and sudden drops tested the search team's resolve. But the shared mission united them, and they trudged on, determined to pierce the forest's secrets. With each passing hour, the team's camaraderie grew. Stories of Robert, shared by those who knew him, echoed through the woods. Every individual, fueled by a mix of concern, hope and determination, held on to the belief that they'd find Robert and bring him home safely. The forest's terrain grew increasingly complex. Sarah and Stephen found themselves clambering over large boulders, traversing narrow ridges and wading through shallow streams. The ground beneath was unpredictable, making every step a calculated risk. Their perseverance was put to the test. Nature threw its challenges in their path. Heavy rains made the pathways slippery and dense fog reduced visibility. Sarah stumbled more than once, the weight of her backpack threatening to pull her down. Yet, every obstacle only strengthened their resolve to push forward. The owl's silent gestures continued to guide them. Sometimes it would perch on a rock, staring pointedly in a specific direction. Other times, its flapping wings or tilted head indicated a path. The duo began to read and rely on its non-verbal cues, which seemed increasingly urgent. Just when they believed they were on a straightforward track, the forest would throw a curveball. Unexpected dead ends, sudden drops, and treacherous climb-ups constantly changed their course. They realized that the search was not just physical, but also a mental challenge. But even in this challenging landscape, there were moments of hope. A discarded water bottle, a piece of torn fabric caught in the brambles, or the distant echo of a familiar bird call. These small signs hinted that they were on the right track. In a sudden, unexpected move, the owl launched itself from Sarah's shoulder, its wings beating powerfully as it soared deeper into the forest. The two, taken by surprise, followed its trajectory, fearing they might lose their guiding light. The dense foliage made it hard to keep track of the owl, but Stephen soon spotted it circling a particular area frantically. The repeated, almost desperate motion was unlike any behaviour they'd seen from the bird before. Drawn to the area the owl emphasised, they soon understood its urgency. The bird's incessant circling became a natural spotlight, focusing their attention on a concealed part of the forest floor obscured by leaves and branches. Pushing away the underbrush and shifting rocks, Sarah and Stephen discovered what looked like a hidden entrance, possibly to a cave or a hollow beneath. It was masterfully concealed, easily missed if not for their feathered guide's insistence. The entrance, though narrow, beckoned them. It promised answers, but also hinted at the possibility of despair. Taking a deep breath, the duo, accompanied by the owl, decided to venture inside, hoping to unravel the mysteries the forest had guarded so closely. The cave's entrance was narrow, demanding a slow, calculated entry. With every step, the weight of anticipation grew. The darkness seemed to press in from all sides, but their determination kept them moving forward. As they ventured deeper, the dim light from their torches revealed an exhausted, injured Robert. He was dehydrated and weak, but alive. His eyes, which held a mix of fear, relief, and recognition, met theirs. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit of human resilience. The moments that followed were a blur of emotions. Sarah and Stephen rushed to Robert's side, offering water, warmth, and words of comfort. Tears flowed freely as relief and gratitude overwhelmed them. They had found their lost hiker against all odds. As Robert regained some strength, he began to recount his ordeal. He spoke of his deep connection with the owl, how they had met, and the events that led to his unfortunate entrapment. It became clear that the bond they shared was unique, almost mystical. Throughout Robert's narrative, the significance of the owl became evident. It wasn't just a bird, it was a lifeline. It had provided Robert with companionship in his darkest moments, bringing him hope when all seemed lost. The journey back was filled with discussions about the owl's role in the rescue. Its intelligence, determination, and sheer will to get Robert found were undeniable. The bird had proven itself a hero, an unassuming saviour with feathers and a hoot. Robert, once settled, delved deeper into his story. He explained how in his most desperate moment he'd entrusted the owl with his pendant. It wasn't just jewellery, it was a call for help, a beacon in the hopes that someone, somewhere would understand. The more Robert shared, the more evident it became that he and the owl were intertwined by destiny. Both had saved each other at different moments, creating a bond that was unbreakable. Their story was a testament to the unpredictable ways life brings souls together. Word of Robert's rescue and the owl's heroic deeds spread like wildfire. The community rejoiced, and as Robert began his journey to recovery, his feathered friend was celebrated far and wide. The story of their bond inspired many. The tale concluded with Robert slowly regaining his health, always with the owl by his side. Their bond, forged by adversity and solidified by fate, was a beacon of hope. It was a testament to the spirit of community, the wonders of nature, and the unpredictable ways in which lives intertwine.